The day that we find out, like, Terry Crews's big flaw is going to be a very, very sad day. As far as I can tell, he's perfect. He's just an amazing guy. And then one day we're going to learn that this one time he was rude to someone, and that's going to be upsetting.
It'll be as bad as losing Attenborough.
Yeah.
As in losing them to that, not like them dying. That's not the comparison I'm trying to make.
If you're going to make a comparison that's not to people dying, maybe don't choose someone as old as Attenborough.
Hey, young people die too.
Let's begin. Within a minute of starting recording, we will begin the Sam and Ryan Google Robots segment.
I mean, you can't Google these.
How do I even find this? King of...
So, cobchina.com/robot.
Cob?
That's KOB.
.com/robot. Oh, I've done .robot. And that does not take it. Oh, I cannot type. This is ridiculous. Type for a living and I can't do it now.
If you'd like, I'll give you the robot's number so you can navigate straight to it. It is number 43, so /robot/43.
This is an amazing linking system. Would you like to translate this page?
No, don't.
No.
It's more fun without.
I'm going to leave it in Chinese. What is that?
Exactly.
It's just like an orange and black box with a pathetic spinner on it.
And what I love is the two people that are sat with it look like they've never seen it before either.
Here is this thing. I shall caress it.
The one you're going to really love, and you may have already looked at it, is, and I'll find the number for you, 62.
62.
You may need to zoom a bit to work out why you're going to love it. Or you may already know the robot.
I mean, that looks like. What is this then? Why? What is? I don't know.
This is a robot I've mentioned a lot in the past. This is Megamelvin.
Okay.
Are you seeing why you should love it?
No.
Zoom in on the rear.
How do you zoom, man? I need a mouse. One sec.
Control, then plus or minus.
Oh, you can use a keyboard, can't you? Yeah. Right. Well, I've zoomed in.
Are you seeing why you should love it?
Ooh, Omni wheels!
There we are.
I spy the Omni wheels.
I've been waiting for so long to see Megamelvin in action properly, and this looks like it might be the chance. They had a really weird cameo in the first proper trailer for Robot Wars.
With that axe thing?
Yeah, it was their sledgehammer test that was shown, even though they're not in Robot Wars. It was just there anyway.
There was Dave Laurie in that trailer as well.
There was, yes.
Despite him not being in it.
That, I think, was just wholly unfair.
A bit cruel.
To use his application video, having rejected his application, just seems a little bit wrong to me. It's just rubbing it in. Now, should we take this our chance to look at the British King of Bots entries?
Sure.
So, we're going to have to do this just by starting at the top of the list and going down.
/robot, okay.
So first off, we've got Ellis Ware teaming up with that guy from Death Roll, whose name I don't know.
That guy from Death Roll, whose name you don't know.
Stephen Martin is what I'm reading.
Apparently, you can't do a middle click on these things and expect them to open in a different tab. You have to do a single click.
Nope, you can't. You also can't do a control click, which is what I've been trying to do.
This is a terrible website.
This is robot number 76.
Yep. Nothing about this site is good.
So we've got a detailed Death Roll, which has now been turned into a shark.
Yep.
And Ellis Ware's featherweight Neon.
Yep.
But my absolute favourite part of this is that for a few hours, this page was added, and it just had a photo of them without the robots. And the photo of them with them, honestly, is worse. Because Ellis trying to look mean doesn't really work.
He's not a mean-looking guy, is he?
He's a clever man, not a mean man. And I'm not saying they have to be mutually exclusive.
He's not as it's not as bad as like the. I was rewatching some of the like '90s Robot Wars and all like the horrible. Like making them trash talk each other. Well, not making them trash talk, but you know what I mean. Like the awkward force, sort of like trash talk. It's just like this is just awkward.
It was brilliant. It was what made it.
What I was watching, though, because someone put together on the Reddit all the like fights between Tornado and Razor.
Oh.
And, yeah, old wounds reopened.
But things like that is why having teams like Plunderbird around was really valuable, because they actually really enjoyed that element of it and made a good robot to boot. Whereas everyone else, I think, was kind of press-ganged into it.
Yeah.
Should I go down to our next robot?
Yep.
I'll give you a number because it's easier for you. You can have 71 now.
Wait, is that easier for me? Because I'm like, control click, man.
Okay, go for the one that's got Gabe and John Reed on it.
I know the one you mean. I'm looking at the one with those people in it.
Oh my. Oh my, that is a good-looking bot.
What does it do?
It's a flipper.
Oh, okay, yeah, I see.
So if you look, it's kind of a terahertz or beta style shell
Yeah.
with the flipper kind of extending over it. So it's like Behemoth's anti-spinner scoop
Yeah.
in terms of shape. It's an inverse scoop as much as anything. If you want an idea of how this will look when it's fighting, just look at the Featherweight Legion, which it's basically an upscaled version of. But there's something about a properly white robot that I didn't realise I'd like as much as I do.
Well, I'm glad that you like it.
You not a big fan of this?
I don't immediately love it, but it is what it is.
It is what it is, and what it is beautiful.
Okay, I've seen.
I can't believe you're not waxing lyrical about it.
What? Why do you think I would be?
Because you care about aesthetics.
It's an okay looking robot. Like, what can I say, man? Like, it doesn't do it for me.
Well, it's not my fault you're wrong. Next up, do you want to go down to Crossfire? Surely you recognise Crossfire without me sending you a number.
I know, Crossfire. What is this madness? This madness that he's made.
I mean, if anyone else made this, you'd ask the question why, but it just makes sense, doesn't it?
Well,
if you're going to build something,
does it make
and you're
sense?
going to be given a bit of budget to do it, you make something ridiculous.
It definitely is ridiculous.
I have no idea what it's going to look like when it fights, but boy, am I excited to find out.
I don't know how it works. Like, does it stand up when the thing is spinning? Does it just does it become upright and like a helicopter thing, or can it go the other way and become like a lawnmower? Like, it's just weird. I don't. It is a very bizarre looking robot. I am excited to see what that will do.
It's one of the things where, in a sense, it has lots of things that we consider to be a bad idea in terms of, it's a massive angled spinner.
Yeah.
With very exposed spindly bits that seem to be quite integral to the way it works.
Yeah.
But it's so damn cool, you just don't care. I'm also noticing it looks like the back wheels. I call them the back wheels as if I know where the front of this is. The big wheels.
Yeah. The drive wheels.
It looks like they're not parallel.
It would appear to be that way from this photo, yes.
So I'm interested to see what that means as well. Of course, I'm saying this as if we're guaranteed to find out. We may never get to see this.
Oh, I'm sure it'll find its way onto the internet. The Great Firewall of China won't stop it.
You'd hope not. Next up, go down one from there and you've got Spectre.
Spectre. Bear with. What, directly below on the thing? Spectre. Robot number 64.
Indeed.
With a big mouth thing on the front of it.
Now, what do you think of this?
I don't know.
Because I absolutely love it again. But only because I've seen other photos of it that actually do it a bit of justice. This photo does not show this robot off in its best light at all.
I suspect I will like it, seeing more of it.
It's one of those things that is that kind of functional beauty. It's got lots of fancy angles on it that aren't necessarily adding anything but aren't taking anything away either, so it looks good. And it's still got that big, effective-looking wedge on the front, and what I'm imagining is more control than crush with the jaw.
Yeah. I agree.
Jeez, try and get some enthusiasm for this, Sam.
This is not what I was expecting to talk about.
Oh, we could have left this for later if you wanted to. Would you like to abandon this and move on? We can abandon this and move on if you'd like.
Well, there's one other robot that I want to talk to you about.
Okay.
Which is the angsty teen version of Terahertz.
I assume you mean Vulcan?
If that's what it's called, I don't know. I can't see any names in English, so I have no idea.
Well, I mean, you might want to just look at the logo that says Vulcan on it.
That logo there, yeah. That is the robot that is an angsty version of Terahertz. But, like, it's such a blatant rip as well. Like, I can't get over it.
I mean, last episode I made a cheap joke about a robot being a knockoff of another, and that didn't go well, so I'm not going to make any of those claims here. I think...
There is nothing to claim. Like, look at it. It is the same shape, the same weapon type. It's angsty teen terahertz. Angsty megahertz.
But it's got tubes on it.
It does have tubes on it.
I'll be honest, when I first saw it, that comparison didn't spring to mind.
There's another picture on the Reddit of that robot from the front, and it's just...
Yeah, that's the thing. It's because I saw this sort of rear side back corner view first.
Yeah.
I know, I think... Yeah, so sometimes you'd look at a robot and you think, that is a very clear rip-off of whatever robot. So on this big list in front of us, we've got a Son of Waiachi clone, we've got a couple of Tombstone clones, and they are very obviously people who have looked at that and gone, I'm going to build that.
Yes.
There are other designs where you look at similarities and you go, well, that's just because that's the best version of the design. I could reasonably imagine people all arriving at that independently if they hadn't seen it elsewhere.
Okay.
Kind of like how the eye evolved in similar ways in different unrelated creatures. You know, it is just the best solution to the problem.
Well, I'd argue the octopus eye is the superior eye, but go on. Yeah, do you know this? An octopus has a better eye. Like, the eyes are better than human eyes in the way they're designed. Or not designed, but you know what I mean, like in the way that they work.
Careful.
Sorry.
I don't think that's our demographic, mate.
If they were designed, which they're not, this is a better one from octopuses.
They're a more effective solution to the given problem.
Yes, they are. Because, like, so the human eye, right? It's got all the nerve endings that go to all the photosensitive stuff on the back of your eye. They are in front of all those nerve endings are in front of all the photosensitive things, and then go through the back of your eye through a hole in the back of your retina, I guess. So you've actually got both. Each eye has its own little blind spot, and there are tests,
which is why you have two. That's fine.
Yeah, and there are things online that you can show where, like, if you're looking through one eye, things will just not be there. Like, you'll be on an all white thing, and then because your brain is like filling in the information from what's around it, dots will disappear because it's filling in white.
You get a kind of grey out effect, don't you? Almost.
And
it's very hard to focus on.
And they just and these things vanish. Whereas octopus eyes have all the nerve endings behind the retina, as they should be, really, and then there's no hole. They don't have a hole in the back of their eye where they can't see anything. But human eyes, and obviously when they were first developed, were considered by nature good enough, and here we are with inferior eyes.
Well, I mean, if we were just smarter and just killed off all the people that had the wrong kind of eye, eventually we'd all have the right eye.
No, because the eye was like developed way, way, way too soon for that. You say we were all smarter, but like if the fish from which we came knew about their eyes. I'm not 100% sold on your claim of fish from which we came. Well, like, so... this is ridiculous to even be getting into, but like...
I could hit you with more of the science, but it's not the time or the place.
What's wrong with the fish from where we came? We came from the ocean. We came from fish.
Not everything that lives in the ocean is fish.
We came from ocean-dwelling things with eyes. The point is, the eyes were developed long before we were humanoids.
Basically, the eyes came from a common ancestor we have with most other land animals. That's what you're trying to say.
With the exception of the octopus. The octopus is really cool because
that's not a land animal, is it?
But it's so different to everything else as well. Like, there's like this huge percentage of the population of the animal kingdom, right? That's all got this common ancestor, and then the octopus just isn't part of it. It's so different to anything else on Earth. It's mad. I like octopuses. Well, yeah.
I like octopuses.
I do like octopuses. They're cool.
I'm not doubting it as a fact. It was just... It was just so much better than what I was about to say. That's the main thing.
Oh, God, this is a disaster.
To get back to my original point, I think this is one of those cases where what you've got here is basically the most effective solution to the problem of building a robot with an axe.
I can't believe that you're looking at all these other robots and saying, there's a Son of Waiachi clone, there's a whatever clone, and then you're looking at this one and saying that that's not a terahertz clone. It is a terahertz clone. There is nothing about that is not terahertz.
Look at the Son of Waiachi clone. It is literally Son of Waiachi painted different colours.
Yes, and this is terahertz with some pipes stuck on it and painted black. They're the same robot. I put it to you that the axe mechanism is the same.
It looks pneumatic. Oh wait, no, so I'm thinking beta, not terahertz. Yeah, that would make sense.
I can't believe that you are, like, especially after the comparison you made last time about knockoff robots.
But that was a very obvious joke that I didn't really believe.
And I can't believe that you're looking at this and saying it's not a knockoff. It's ridiculous.
It's not a knockoff. It is a similar solution to a similar problem. That isn't the kind of thing that if you showed it to someone who'd watched Robot Wars once, they go, oh, there's that robot by that guy with that beard who shouts at the guy that does his weapon.
They totally would. I hope the Reddit rips into you. I hope they tear you a new thingamadoo and show you.
Hey, that's good. My thingamadoo's getting quite old.
I hope the Reddit rip into you. This is a terahertz knockoff. Your position is indefensible.
I think your position on this is probably the more popular position.
My position is the correct one.
Truth is subjective. Did that anger you as much as I wanted it to?
I just refuse to talk to you now. That's it.
So my plan of go through the British robots has kind of fallen apart here, although we were actually through most of them, so that's fine.
Well, seeing as truth is subjective, I'm going to say that we are through all of them, and that's a fact.
You know, there is one more we should look at, and it is right next to Vulcan, and that is Griffin.
I'm assuming it's the one with the big fluffy animal thing in it.
Yes, it is.
That looks weird.
It's like Coyote grew up.
Is it?
You not seeing the link there? That whole sort of aesthetic of it, it looks absolutely beautiful. It's also from the team that did Bucky the Robot. So they're debuting in Robot Wars, and basically at the same time debuting in King of Bots.
Good for them. They've built a very top-heavy robot.
You can't prove that. You don't know where the... That doesn't look top-heavy.
It doesn't look top-heavy.
Are we looking at the same robot? I just want to check.
It's got like a big beak thing, and there's a fluffy animal and about like a stuffed owl thing in the team photo.
Good.
That looks like a thin version of Totoro. I don't know, like what?
That doesn't look that top-heavy to me.
The robot does, yeah.
Bear in mind that of the weapon, a lot of it is probably empty space. All the batteries and drive and fancy bits are going to be in the base, surely.
Okay, I'm sure technically its centre of mass is quite low, but it looks top-heavy. Like, aesthetically, it is too much on the top.
Basically, what you've said is they've built a tall robot.
No, they've built a robot that's got like a very small base that expands as it goes upwards. It looks unbalanced. It looks wrong.
It looks amazing. Man, sometimes your taste in robots baffles and upsets me.
Well, I'm sorry, we can't all have the same great taste that I have.
Can we get back to the knockoffs for a second, though?
Okay.
Go up and right from Griffin for the amazing Expulsion. Sorry, not Expulsion. Eruption clone. They barely even changed the colour scheme. It's amazing.
That is a very similar robot. But is that not, just, a good solution to the same problem? Surely all robots converge on this shape?
No, because Eruption isn't the optimal solution to a flipper.
You are insufferable.
No, I'm just consistent.
You're not consistent at all. Nothing about this is consistent.
The optimal design for a flipper is the kind of wedge that we see with Apollo. It's offensively and defensively balanced. Whereas what you have with this shape is a lot of spinner-friendly angles on the rear section.
It's just astonishing to me that you're looking at this and saying that this is a clone or a knockoff of Eruption, and then you're looking at Vulcan and saying that's not a knockoff of Terra. It's just mad.
Had I seen a front angle of Vulcan first, I might feel the same.
Yeah, but you have seen it now.
No, but my immediate impressions count for a lot.
Are you saying that you were going to refuse to change your mind in the light of new evidence? Do you mean that truth is subjective more than you're letting on?
What I mean is I need persuading.
What more persuasion could you need than seeing the damn thing from the front?
If it didn't have all the tubes on top, I would probably be agreeing with you. And they're not even necessarily a functional part of the robot.
I can't believe that tubes are enough for you to think that they're not a knockoff. It's just mad.
If it had polycarb, I'd be with you.
So if I made exactly the same robot, if I made terahertz out of cardboard, would you tell me that's a different robot? It's not a knockoff at all.
I'll tell you it's a worse robot.
That's not the point. Like, my point here is that the materials have no bearing on whether or not that's a knockoff. They could make it out of cardboard. They could make it out of condensed, I don't know, something else
Condensed
ridiculous,
milk?
tungsten. Condensed milk for all I care. I don't know. It's the same robot.
This is so not the podcast we came to record.
You anger me, sir.
Look, it's a nice robot. I am not denying that there are similarities, but I would not go to the extent of calling it a knockoff.
You are inconsistent in your judgment of these things.
To be fair, part of it as well is that I look at the team, and this is a team that do not need to make a knockoff.
And yet they've made one anyway.
They haven't.
They have!
They've come up with the same solution to the same problem. Okay, let's dive deeper on this. If we're going to look at building a robot with a hammer as an engineering problem, what for you are the main considerations?
What do you mean the main considerations? Like, you can make
What are the key
many
parts of that
hammers
problem?
that do not look like this. Thor, for example,
but
is another excellent
that's not the question I'm
robot
asking.
with an axe that looks completely different. You
That's
want a
not
big
the question
axe.
I'm asking, though, is it?
You want a big axe. You want it to hit opponents. I don't know. Like, they're the same considerations as any other robot design.
Okay, so you want it to hit opponents. That means that all the action is going to be happening in front of you, which means that you don't really need to protect the rear, which we see on Terahertz, we also see on this. What else?
This is a terahertz clone, and there is no argument you can make that's going to change that fact, because there are so many other axes that are as good or better than terahertz that do not look like this. Even Beta.
Send me the list.
Even Beta looks less like the terahertz than this robot, and they're designed by the same freaking person. This is a terahertz clone.
On that point, I can't argue.
Like, Beta, the same materials, the same kind of shape, but it looks more different than this does.
I mean,
Chomp is another excellent
At that
robot with an
point-
axe that looks completely different.
that's a whole different solution to the problem, though, and I'd argue that it's not optimal. By that logic, you're saying that Tanshe looks more like Beta than it does anything else as well, presumably. Is it is it
I
a
don't know
Beta
what
knockoff?
robot you're talking about.
John Reed's one. Well, John Reed and Gabe. And Al. And possibly some other people.
What, the one in King of Bots?
Yeah. The one that you didn't like the look of very much.
Well, that one. But I mean, that's got a similar kind of aesthetic, but it looks different. That's clearly a different thing.
Well, yeah, it has a completely different mode of operation. Yeah, I know.
But this Vulcan thing looks more like terahertz than that does, because they're the same robot. Take terahertz, you paint it black, and you get this robot.
To be fair, they have never been seen in the same room.
Terahertz is Bruce Wayne.
No, I think if you're going to build a robot with a big hammer, you want to armour the front heavily as best you can at the expense of the back. You need stability at the rear to stop it kicking up when it fires. And ideally, you want the hammer coming down from a reasonably raised position to get better strikes down on an opponent. Because really, you want to be hitting when your sort of hammer shaft is basically parallel with the ground. This achieves all of those things.
Yes, and there are other designs that do that as well.
Yeah, but you're using Chomp as an example, and I don't think Chomp is a good example
Fine, look
of
at
a
Thor.
robot with a hammer. Oh, can we really use Thor after last series?
Well, look at the version of Thor from the series before. It doesn't matter. The point is you can build very good axes and hammer robots that do not look like this.
You can, but this is the best design.
No!
They're good designs, not best. We're looking for best here. It's similar, but it's not a rip-off. That's my final statement on it. There are similarities, absolutely, but I don't think they are a group of people that you could accuse of ripping anything off. I think that would be doing them a disservice.
I can, have, and will continue to do so.
Maybe when we eventually see it in action, it'll, like, unfold into a completely different robot or something.
That would be sick if it did that.
Did you use the word sick?
Is that unacceptable?
I think this whole thing was a mistake. Can you remember when we came here to do a podcast about the whole mech battle thing?
I have closed the tabs for King of Bots.
I think that's a good idea. I'll follow suit.
And I think we should move on now.
I think we should get on topic. I was going to say back on topic, but it's the first time.
So, a little while ago, some Americans who built a big mech thing that they could get inside of and drive around challenged some Japanese people who had done a similar thing to a mech battle, a Megabot mech battle thing like we've seen in the films. And then several years passed, and now they've actually done it.
In those films they've got now.
I have no idea why you've just said that.
Reference, don't worry. I think this podcast, now that it's actually back on topic, should just be called Unmanaged Expectations, because that is the headline of this whole thing. I don't know what people were expecting from this,
Exactly this.
but they were expecting too much.
Well, I was
Anyone
expecting...
who is unsatisfied with what they've seen in this, it is their own fault.
So I was expecting exactly this, because as soon as you put people in it, you know it's going to be a bit lame. Like,
Exactly.
oh, there's people in that thing. Okay, well, nothing cool is going to happen now. But anyway,
I really don't understand why they work so hard to have people in it. That's both more difficult and worse.
because I bet it's really freaking awesome for the people inside the robot. Like, if I could, I would love to be inside the robot and doing this, even though from the outside it's a bit like slow and dull and health and safety and all that kind of stuff. But even with all that, from the inside, that must have been awesome.
I don't know if it would have been, purely because it seems to have been quite scripted.
Well, if you we'll get on to that. But
I think it'd be really cool to drive one in an actual free-form battle where you're thinking on your feet and doing stuff.
Yes. And I think that's probably why they were fighting for it so much, because it's like, well, that would be really cool to do. And for lots of reasons, not as cool as we wanted to watch. But I hope that it was as cool as they wanted inside it. So I just want to sort of like...
That's going to come up later. You carry on.
I just want to sort of like finish sort of like setting the stage for this a little bit. So America challenged Japan to this, or this American team challenged the Japanese team to it, and then it happened. And after that challenge was set and the Japanese team accepted that challenge, America decided they wanted to build another robot, and they built a much bigger robot. So you've got this one like small fight that the Japanese people insisted they fight because that's what they originally agreed to, and then America bought a second robot because they're America and because that's what they wanted to do.
Because screw your rules.
Because screw the rules, they have money, and they bought a second robot that was like much bigger and I think possibly even twice the weight of the Japanese robot or something ridiculous like that. So that was the staging, and then we were promised a really awesome battle of mechs, and then we got 3 fights.
That's a liberal interpretation of the term fight.
We got 3 fights, 3 supposed fights from them. Would you like, Ryan, to talk us through the fights?
So, fight number 1, in which a robot went sideways at another robot and it fell over.
That was so funny. I was actually quite surprised they let it fall over. I was sort of expecting, with all the health and safety stuff, that wouldn't have happened. I would have thought it would just be a bit like grapply stuff, and then they'd go, okay, that's enough. But like, it was quite funny. It was just so simple. Just this Japanese robot driving forward with a fist outstretched, just bumped into the other robot and toppled it over. It was very funny.
Do we have actual confirmation that people were inside as that was happening? Because it'd be very easy to shoot without them in there.
I am going to trust that although the fights were most likely scripted, that the things we saw actually happened.
Well, they obviously actually happened, but did they happen as presented? I mean, I believe that robot fell over. I don't think that was some crazy CGI that was completely pointless.
I am willing to believe that there were people in it when it fell over.
I just feel that because they made so much of the shots of people getting out of it, that was almost suspicious. Not that it would... I mean, it doesn't matter to me either way, really. If there were people in it, then fine. If not, also fine. That part of it was pointless anyway, so...
It was pointless. It matters to me. So the scripted nature of this is interesting, right? So wrestling is scripted, and a lot of people use... I mean, to be clear, I'm not like a big wrestling fan. I'm aware of wrestling and how it works. So like wrestling is scripted, and a lot of people sort of go, oh, it's scripted, it's all fake, and they think it's rubbish as a result. But wrestling, like although the outcome of the fight is like scripted, and they might have like certain points during a fight they want to hit, it's sort of largely the guys actually doing the wrestling kind of make up as they go along. But then more importantly, they actually do the things that you see them doing. Like when they hit the ground hard, they've hit the ground hard, and it probably hurts. And when they throw each other around, although they're both working together to throw one of them quite far, he's being thrown that far, so it is a very impressive thing to watch, even though the outcome is predetermined. And if it's the same kind of scripting in this, I'm okay with it. Like, I mean, they need to work on the execution of it, but I'm okay with it if it's like, well, we know that this team is going to win and we're going to hit these points along the way, but the people are actually going to be in the robot, they're going to be controlling it, and when the robot falls over, they will be in it. That's sort of fine. But if it's like, well, we're gonna do this like a film, we're gonna use special effects and we're gonna use clever camera angles and cuts and all kinds of stuff to fake it all, then that is fake at that point. It's like, well, what you've got is filmmaking to make it look like a mech battle, and if you're going to do filmmaking to make a mech battle, you might as well do it like they do in Hollywood, CG the whole thing and make it exciting.
You see, that's the thing. I understand the wrestling comparison, but in a sense, there's a kind of... It's not even an understanding, it's almost a consent on the part of the audience to consume something that is scripted, but that still has elements that are impressive. If you go to watch some wrestling, you know what you're getting into. Whereas I do feel that when this was first announced, at least, it was presented as, we are going to have a fight. not we are going to produce a video of a fight.
Yeah. I'm a bit...
If you went to wrestling expecting MMA, there'd be a problem. And I think that's kind of what's happened here.
Yeah, I was a bit miffed towards, like, when it became really apparent it was scripted. It was like, well, this is a bit lame. But you know, in hindsight, it's like, well, if I'd known that going in, I'd be a bit more okay with it. And if they executed it better, I'd be okay with it as well. And if they do more of these fights and they are similarly scripted, I will still be okay with it as long as it's executed well, as long as it's still, you know, at least feels real if you're willing to suspend your disbelief a little bit, you know?
I mean, for me, I went in with very well managed expectations because as soon as this whole thing came up, you go, that looks too good to be true.
Yeah, I wasn't expecting this to be Hollywood film level, you know, Pacific Rim style fighting going on. It was going to be a very slow moving sequence of things between two very big machines with people in them that aren't going to do all that much damage to each other because they're using paint guns, you know? I wasn't expecting the best or the greatest thing in the world, but, you know.
And the silly thing is, I think this could be turned into something more. I really love the idea that was used in the second and third parts of there is kind of a structured battlefield with cover and things. I think if you did something, and obviously this is a bit of a leap, but an unscripted fight with rules and sort of forms of point scoring or whatever could actually be a really entertaining thing to watch. Even if you were just mostly using the paint guns, I think that's a good idea. I think you could really make that into something if you chose to. But instead, the whole being at other sides of a battlefield thing was basically used to make the video longer. And it always frustrates you when there's a really good idea that is basically there for the wrong reasons. They could have come up with some, you know, that could have been a great scene, but it wasn't because it was just, and now they'll push over some cars as if that's going to make a difference. And oh, look how powerful our paintball cannon is. It knocked barrels over. It's just...
That's quite a powerful paint gun, to be fair. Like, I know those barrels are obviously empty and stuff, but they're still not light, you know? It's not like knocking over a paper cup or something.
Oh, absolutely. And if you look on their YouTube channel, there's a video where they tested that paintball gun on the original version of their first mech, the little one, to see if it would be safe to fire at something that had someone in it. And it just went straight through the cockpit. So, you know, it absolutely has a lot of power in it when the things aren't disintegrating in the barrel. But again, they've shown that better on their YouTube channel than they have there. So it's hard for it to be as impressive as it should be.
Yeah.
And I must say, the great thing to come out of this is that YouTube channel. There's loads of really good stuff on there that shows what these machines are actually capable of and shows a little bit of the sort of background work, which I really like. The best bit of them is that one of the guys building it was on the Lucky team in BattleBots. He's the guy who's always wearing overalls when everyone else is in team kit and like shouting, yeah, Canada a lot. And he's in a lot of those videos and he's brilliant.
I think he likes Canada.
Who doesn't?
I'm sure there's someone.
Yeah, like that one person that thinks that Vulcan isn't a Terahertz clone.
Terahertz clone and you know it. Search your feelings, you know it to be true.
God.
OG trilogy reference. Oh, yes. Finally did it.
Is there a slight danger that this could be our new jellyfish moment for the year?
Only if you keep bringing it up.
That's the thing. That's what makes it a jellyfish moment. Anyway, back on topic.
Yeah, but what about jellyfish then?
I'd like to think that jellyfish would have fared quite well against the mechs. I don't think they could really hit it. It's too low down.
He should scale up jellyfish. He should make a jellyfish that's the same size.
Can we give it an octopus's eye? This brings me on to a serious note that I actually didn't write down. And I was just thinking of the idea of jellyfish being in that arena and how it would get crushed by those tracks. And that made me remember that the Chinese robot is basically strapped to the front of a tractor. That was by far the most amateurish part of this. It basically looks like some politician somewhere had made a controversial decision to cut some farming subsidies. So some very angry farmers had made an effigy of him, strapped it to the front of a tractor and were about to set fire to it. It looked so stupid from a distance, because it was kind of leaning back that little bit as well, and the feet had just been placed near the wheel, so it looked like it was on the floor.
Yeah, it was sort of the less cool looking of the robots. Still liked it though.
I must say, the stylistic differences are really interesting. I love the kind of tiny head on the Chinese one.
Japanese one.
Why do I keep thinking Chinese? I've said that a few times as well. Why do I keep thinking that? It's because of King of Bots, isn't it? That's what it is. So, the Japanese one. I really like the tiny little head on it. It makes it look more like a toy. But then the American one just looked far more violent. Well, mainly because it was.
The American one is American.
And slightly Canadian.
America. I'm looking at like other pictures. Wasn't like the Japanese one meant to be on like 3 legs at one point?
That sounds weird.
I think it was meant to be on a tripod with wheels.
I mean, the whole idea, Sam, is that this is humanoid. I don't want to think what the third leg is.
Yeah, there's a picture here of it, and it's got 3 legs.
I didn't really follow the build of the Japanese one, to be honest.
I think the Japanese one with the legs definitely looks cooler than the American one. I say I'm looking at a picture. I'm sorry. This is a Photoshop, so I'm gonna move on. But like I feel like I read somewhere that one of them was meant to have legs as well.
Is this the one with sort of 3 wheels all facing in different directions?
Yeah.
I mean, it would be more stable. Although that said, the American one was extremely stable. I really like what they did in terms of having that tracked base. Yeah, the second one. Having that tracked base and then having legs on that.
Yeah, that was quite. Yeah, that I think that worked well.
And the whole thing is, I believe, completely bottom heavy anyway, because there's so much stuff on that bottom. All the hydraulic systems, all of the engines and things like that, they're all in that one place.
Yeah. The ending of this whole thing was pretty lame as well. So you had like
atrocious.
A definitive win from Japan in the beginning, and then you had sort of they just end up like tangled up together, and then they were just stuck there and stopped moving, and they sort of called an end to it. And then they did the rematchy type thing, the third one, where for some reason Japan brought out a tiny pathetic little machine gun thing that did nothing, and
it was meant to cover up the camera lenses.
Oh. And there was that drone at some point as well, wasn't there?
Oh, I was waiting to get to that.
We'll come to that in a second. And then again, they sort of ended up locked together, grappling a little bit, and then America was declared the winner, and that was it.
Pretty much, yeah.
Rubbish. Oh, so in that last one, this is where it was like so obviously and painfully scripted, right? Because they've got the American one like went over to a lighting rig that was sat in the middle of the arena for some reason,
and that clearly wasn't doing any of the actual lighting.
Wasn't doing any lighting. Grabbed a bit of it, sent sparks flying, and I don't know for sure, but I don't think lights make those kind of sparks. I think those were like special effects sparks. But anyway, sparks go flying, and then it picks up this square truss thing and holds it in front of the Japanese robot and spins it a bit, and then puts it down.
Oh yeah, what was that all about? We're just going to show off that our wrist rotates.
Look at this spinning truss. Okay, done with that now. Put it down and move on.
It did have a slight lightsaber aesthetic with the pointless spinning while not actually attacking someone.
There was that, and I guess they were sort of trying to spin and block the paint pellets or something. I don't know.
Which you could have done with a stationary object.
A stationary object, or spinning something really, really fast as opposed to sort of like that kind of speed.
That was an interesting sound effect.
That is how you express to someone speed. You don't use RPMs or anything like that. You go zzz at the rate at which the thing was spinning.
I was actually thinking to myself as that was happening, that's actually going to be carrying quite a lot of energy. I mean, that whole end section, it's by far the worst of the scripting.
Oh god, it's so awkward as well because you've got all the people running away and the 2 judges and stuff sort of saying we should move. And it's like, well, you're the expert. It's like, yes, and we should move. And then they didn't move, and then they moved, and they clearly weren't in any danger ever, but they were trying to act like they were. It was ridiculous.
Just love that idea of, oh no, these things are out of control because, they move so fast. There's no time to react if you're the driver and overcome this problem.
Something I meant to do before we started recording that I'm now going to do during the recording because I do want to do it is actually look up who these judges are, because there was what's his face and what's her face, but I can't remember their names.
Together they are what's their faces. While you're doing that, you've mentioned it. We've got to go there. The drone.
The drone.
The drone. Why? Just why? It didn't even have a flamethrower on it.
It didn't, no.
It had a couple of tiny smoke pellets and maybe a light. I mean...
I was just watching this video again. During the opening sequence of this video, they've got like Kennedy's speech and then a video of the Saturn V launching and then landing on the moon as if these things are remotely comparable. Oh dear. I'm sorry. Carry on with the drone.
I don't even have the energy to rant about it. You know what? It's just so obviously stupid.
Yeah, like a smoke
I'm not
carrying
even angry
drone
anymore.
to try and hide. I don't know, obscure their vision or something, wasn't it?
I think maybe it's helped to give a slight sense of scale, as if being next to cars wasn't already doing that. I'm trying to defend it here and I just can't.
There is no defense. It's as indefensible as you claiming that Vulcan is not a terahertz clone.
Oh, how happy would I have been if King of Bots had a jellyfish clone?
Unreasonably.
That's when you know you've made it.
I found the names of these judges now. So the judges are like, there's Mike Goldberg, presumably the brother of Rube, and
Joke of the podcast. Right there. We've peaked.
too easy. And is he like a wrestling commentator or something? Or
I would not know.
I think he is, yeah. WWE, UFC, these seem like fighting type things. And then the other one was, who I want to listen to them say her name again so I stand at least a fighting chance of getting it right. One sec.
This really needs intermission music.
We do. They're in the steel mill as well.
Oh yeah. That was creatively named, wasn't it?
Yeah. Sarah Nadiri, who is a robotics expert, apparently. She does appear to work for Qualcomm, so I assume she knows her stuff. She didn't really get a chance to show that very much in this.
I mean, how much judging happened?
Basically, not a lot.
It was more commentating than judging, wasn't it?
I feel like her keen insight was that they should move away from the giant robots. Which is a shame.
Which, to be fair, you can't argue with.
Well, you can if you're Mike Goldberg, who decided to argue with her about it for some reason.
No, the script told him to. There's a
the
difference.
script. Oh, sorry, yeah, sorry. The script made it so. I don't know. I don't know where I was going with that.
Not quite sure why middle of the road bands were getting involved, but you know. It's interesting. This is the first time since I watched it that I've looked at any pictures of it. Just because you've mentioned it, I've sort of gone online, and this doesn't have any futuristic feel to it.
No.
This is more heavy engineering than it is future technology, and you know that isn't a criticism as such. Again, that's more to do with people's expectations.
Yeah. There's nothing here that's absolutely groundbreaking. It's.
My overwhelming feeling isn't even being underwhelmed. I don't think I feel enough to be underwhelmed. I just think, ultimately, this is something that has been crowdfunded.
Yeah, it is something that has been crowdfunded. That is correct.
So I'm being very careful with how I say this because this is quite a big criticism.
Oh dear.
I feel like people thought they were going to get something very different. And as much as that is a problem of people's ability to be realistic, I think that's a viewpoint that was encouraged.
It's a giant robot duel.
It's not a giant robot duel, that's the thing.
No, it's not.
And the most we've seen from it in terms of, you know, robots actually damaging each other is a few panels being pulled off of the Japanese one.
And they didn't even... I'm not convinced they were metal panels. They looked like they might have been fiberglass panels as well, or something like that.
I was just going to say, the way one of them broke when being hit by the metal barrel of a cannon was very fiberglassy. It was white inside.
Yeah, it looked suspiciously like fiberglass. Oh dear. Yeah, not what everyone hoped for, but exactly what we were always going to get, I think.
Yeah. In a way, I am pleased it's all happened, as I say, because the YouTube channel for the Megabots guys has got a lot of really good stuff on it. You know, the sort of testing they did with all the weapons and that, there's some good stuff that came from that.
Yeah.
And I think if I were someone that had crowdfunded it, I would be quite satisfied with that.
I suspect you're a minority.
Possibly.
I think this would be vastly improved if they didn't put the people in it. I think if this was like but not like remote control in the way that Robot Wars and BattleBots is, but if they had some kind of VR system, so you've got the cameras in the robot, so you've still got to fight from the robot's point of view, and then you're in like VR gear with whatever. You could even go like in Pacific Rim, where they've got the motion control, like it's hooked up to what you're doing, is what the mech is doing and stuff. I think that would be quite cool.
I hadn't thought about the VR thing. I really like that. I had sort of thought, master-slave controls seem like the way to go with this. I found it really interesting that at one point they were talking about all the computer systems that interpreted the control inputs and made them into compound movements of multiple joints.
Yeah,
and I'm thinking,
for the American one, yeah.
A Walden Overlord had this sorted out for BattleBots. It's not necessarily a difficult problem to solve. It's just the way you've chosen to solve it is largely through software, because you've got the limitation of having to be inside.
As someone who has tried to solve this very problem, it is a hard one to solve. A Walden Overlord is interesting because they don't have to do the inverse kinematics because they've got the position of the arm from a human arm. It's a much more straightforward translation. The Megabots guys, because presumably they're using buttons and joysticks and stuff, they've got to do the inverse kinematics to figure out where the arm should be to get the tool in a particular position in space. So the software is entirely necessary and quite difficult.
Oh yeah, but what I mean is they've chosen to do it that way instead of doing like a Walden Overlord did, which if you were not in the machine would be, I was going to say trivial, that's probably a bit overzealous, but
it wouldn't be trivial, but it would be.
That seems like the pragmatic solution.
Yeah, I'd say it'd be easier. I mean, you could still be in the machine. I mean, Avatar, the mech things in Avatar, the person is in it, and it's still like arm controlled. And I guess for an example from I was gonna say a better film, but no, it's not a better film. But in the later Matrix films, they've got these ridiculous mech things as well. In my head it was just the Matrix, but obviously it's not. It's the rubbish ones, but they've got these mechs as well, where again the arms at the very least are controlled by the position of the pilot's arms. So you could do that and be in it still. You couldn't fit
from
two
a
people.
Safety point of view, I'm not sure that's kosher.
No, exactly. No, I think
because if you imagine, you are in that machine and it falls over, and you instinctively go to grab something, the machine is then making that same motion. That might not be ideal. Yeah,
this is why I think VR would be a really great thing. VR with that kind of control system where it's hooked onto your arms and following the position of your arms would be really cool. I think you'd get sort of the best of both worlds while being within reasonable limits of safety.
And again, doing it all from a distance, it just opens up so much more with the machines as well.
Yeah.
So that really cool sort of chainsaw sword they had, they were so limited in what they could do with that. That's a really cool weapon.
Yeah.
But they're just having to sort of graze it somewhere near a leg or maybe on a fist.
Is this the scale we need to go to before chainsaws are a viable weapon in robot combat?
I mean, to be fair, if the opposing team hadn't made lots of vital components out of what seemed to be plastic, might not have been that viable.
There's a lot that could be done with this. I would like to see them keep trying. At the very least, they need to, if they're going to keep putting people in it and scripting it, they need to work on their execution of that. Hire better actors, perhaps.
I also think that the Japanese robot didn't do the American robot justice. I think it wasn't quite up to the same standard.
The thing is, I guess what's happened here is like the first matchup, the small American one versus the Japanese one, I think could be interesting if they kept going with that a little bit. If a few modifications to the small American one to make it a bit less likely to topple over, that might have been a more interesting thing. But because the American one is just overwhelmingly bigger than the Japanese one, like I think it was something ridiculous like twice the weight. It was just so much bigger, so much more weight and stuff there that of course the Japanese robot isn't going to have to do anything about it. I think it'd be really much more interesting if they were in the same weight class. If it wasn't such a ridiculous matchup. If America had scaled back a little bit with their robot, I think it would have been more interesting, or could have been more interesting.
For me, the issue isn't size and weight; it's a question of what they are actually capable of. Because if you look at that Japanese machine, that left arm didn't really do anything except raise and lower. I'm not sure it even had a shoulder per se. The American machine has got basically human levels of mobility in the arms, and that isn't being matched by the Japanese one. The Japanese one, to throw a punch with that big heavy fist, had to turn at the hips.
Yeah. So it hasn't got like a ball and socket joint at its shoulder. Yeah, it has to rotate. I mean, I think it's. Yeah, I don't know. I think the weight was the biggest thing. I think it would have been more interesting if they were similar weight classes at the very least. It would have been less one-sided, but America can't have that.
I've just realised that basically what I want is the film Real Steel in real life.
I have not seen that.
It's basically boxing with robots. It's terrible and good. It is the kind of thing that you were kind of looking at here when the two robots were grappling.
Yeah.
but done with fancy CGI instead of real engineering, which makes it better to watch.
CGI for the win.
It's kind of an interesting commentary on the capabilities of AI as well, but only for a little bit. And even then, I'm massively overselling it. It's not very good, but you should watch it because it's fun. In the same way that I still haven't watched Pacific Rim, and you reference it basically every time we do this.
I mean, you should watch it. Well, should you watch it? You should watch it. It's funny.
Would I actually enjoy it?
It's got giant robots in it, and the voice
So
of
did
GLaDOS.
this.
Yeah, and also the voice of GLaDOS. So, you know. Have you played
That
Portal?
is essentially meaningless to me, unfortunately. I know what you're referencing, but it carries no personal meaning for me.
What? Do you not play computer games anymore? Like, are you not cool?
I don't want to answer that question. Because you know what the answer is, and I'm not proud.
You should play Portal.
That would require having a control scheme better than a touchpad on my laptop.
Look, mice are not expensive.
They are not, but renting rooms that have desks is.
Mice are not expensive.
I did actually want to quickly talk Robot Wars for a second.
Well, you can talk Robot Wars.
And just highlight the fact that we were wrong about quite a lot of things, but we were also right about a couple of things.
We were wrong about nothing.
The main thing we seem to be wrong about is Fog of War. It looks like it really is shooting CO2 into the arena, and I don't know how I feel about it yet.
Well, we'll just have to wait and see.
There's also something we forgot to do, because I feel that we should stick our necks out, seeing as we actually get to do a series live.
Okay.
I want to know your predictions for a grand final.
My predictions for a grand final.
Mm-hmm. Who's getting there? Who's winning it?
Carbide. End of answer.
You really think it's that cut and dried?
Yeah.
In that heat, you think it's that cut and dried?
I will be surprised I'll be very surprised if Carbide does not make it to the final. And I will be a bit surprised if it doesn't win.
I can really see Carbide not winning that heat. And if they don't win that heat, they will not win that 10-way.
No. Go and refresh my memory of that heat.
So you've got Carbide, Aftershock, Eruption, Gabriel, Crackers and Smash, and Big Nipper. And I just did that from memory, and I'm a little bit too proud of myself.
Nerd.
I've been looking at that list a lot this week. Hell of a lot.
I think the only one there that poses a real threat is probably Aftershock.
Really? Because I'm looking at Eruption as the winner of that heat.
Maybe Eruption, yeah. Yeah. It's 2 from each heat go through, don't they?
1 from each heat goes through, and then 2 more go into the 10-way.
Oh, yeah. So I think Carbide is just going to go clean through. I just think it's just going to go through. And I think it will be, yeah, and then I think it's 2 more that go to the 10-way, isn't it? Yeah, so I think it would then be, yeah, Eruption and Aftershock in the 10-way, where I would imagine that Eruption has the advantage.
You see, I don't think that any spinner or flipper is going to do well in that 10-way. Something like Behemoth, if it got there, would do well. It's a low-pressure system. It's got a lot of lifts in it. Gabriel is the perfect robot for that situation. And I don't know if this is an outlandish prediction or not, but I see Gabriel being part of the grand final. Because I don't see it not getting top 3 in that heat, and I don't see it losing in that 10-way. You know, but because Carbide is in that heat, someone is ending up beyond repair. And because Aftershock is in that heat, someone is ending up beyond repair. Probably one of the 2 of them. Whereas Gabriel is the kind of robot that, if it even does take damage, it's not going to be to anything that important. And it's going to be very easy to repair. So I really see them making it through. I don't see them winning the whole thing. I think it's going to be a flipper. I think it's going to be either Eruption or Iron Ore. I don't personally rate Apollo all that highly, but I don't think we're going to see another spinner win this year. I think so many teams are going to be ready for them. Entanglement I don't think is going to make a difference, but I think a lot of people are going to be designing to bypass spinners more. They're going to be designing for repairability a bit more. They're probably going to be bringing more spares, just overall.
Spare robot.
So I think the meta is going to move very slightly purely because people will be over-focusing on the likes of Carbide.
We shall see, I guess, on Sunday.
Well, we won't, because we'll only see 1 heat.
Well, we will begin to see.
It's a good heat, though. It's a good heat.
I guess will be the first time we see Fog of War. I'd be surprised if that wasn't in the first episode.
Yes. We also get, I mean, it's got 2 really interesting new robots. No, it's got 3 really interesting new robots. I mean, technically it's got 6 really interesting new robots. It's back. That's what it is. It's back. And I could not be happier. And I'm going to stop before I start gushing, because I will.
I think we should stop. Should we also just quickly mention like what our recording and release schedule is going to be? Do you think anyone cares?
Hey, you're now saying that we have a recording and release schedule. Let's do it.
Okay, well, for the purposes of this run of this series of Robot Wars, we're going to try and record on Thursdays, was it? Is that what we decided? Yep. Try and record on the Thursday after it airs. Just schedules for both of us mean that is the earliest we can reasonably record. And then
It's that or literally after the episode.
It's that or nothing.
That's not going to suit us.
Don't tell the people. It's Thursdays or nothing. And then I will edit as fast as humanly possible, and we will probably get an episode up on Friday or Saturday.
Do you remember those dark days when I did all the editing and spent a week on it? Oh, mate. What was I doing?
You were using the wrong program. That's what you were doing.
I was using the best program available to me, which also happened to not be the best program.
The best program available to you for the low price of free. That's what you were using.
Exactly.
I was willing to throw money at the problem and bought Reaper.
Of course, do I want to say this while we're still recording? I'll say it anyway, and I'll make it as hard for you to use as possible. What I think about Vulcan is that it is quite similar to terahertz. But in the interest of conversation, I had to stick with that viewpoint, even though I realised it wasn't accurate. So I had to double the down.
Well, you can find the show notes for this episode, such as it is, at spinnerproof.com/episodes/12. There you can find links to all the things we've been talking about.
I.
You can't do that. I'm not making the server capable of parsing Roman numerals. It's not happening.
Be a fun challenge for you.
You can find us on Twitter at Spinnerproof, where you can tweet us your favourite rocket. I don't know. Tweet us something. Mine, for reference, is a Soyuz rocket. So, there's that.
Mine's Red Rocket.